Hey folks, it's Greg Leach, Art of Cycling. Glad to see you here. Obviously not doing cycling right now. And sorry for starting with the time-lapse video, but it's Christmas card season. So every year I create a Linocut Christmas card that I send out. And this is the process. You can see I just switched blades from the fine blade to do the line work to a deeper gouge blade to start cutting things out, and somewhere in that I think I switched back again. Or no, I didn't. I'm still using the fine blade. But this is a tradition I've been doing close to 40 years. Well, actually, this is the 40th anniversary. And so every year create these. They're Linocuts, so this is linoleum that I'm carving out. This year we were struggling a little bit with the theme. Every year I try to tie the image into either personal experiences in our family life or into political realities. There was a 12-year hiatus from that where I did the 12 Days of Christmas. That was nice not to have to think about a theme each year. But this year we were playing around with the idea of doing the visitation when Mary goes to her cousin Elizabeth and they discover, I want to skip to what I'm doing right now. So, but this image comes from so we were playing with that image, and then my son sent me a picture of his daughter, obviously my granddaughter, the younger of the two, older son, younger granddaughter. This lovely picture with her wearing her fairy wings, and she has long blonde ringlets. And she was sitting on the couch with her wings on and had tucked her hands so daintily up under her chin. And here I am now using the marker to finesse the drawing of those hands to make sure I've got them just right, because before it was just a little pencil sketch and I wanted to use the marker to get myself a more clean, exact line to follow, because there's no sketchiness in a linoleum cut. You can't, like an etching or a lithograph, you have a little more sketchiness in either of those two media. But with Linocut and in fact silkscreen, you got to be more specific. I've always had trouble with those two. But anyway, so this image came from her, and that's why there's ivy leaves along the bottom, because her name is Ivy. So if you're wondering, what does that got to do with Christmas? Although there is the holly and the ivy. And it's actually quite common that most of the Christmas cards have holly in the border. Usually wood and holly berries, but variation on a theme here and a celebration of ivy. I thought I'd use the ivy leaves. Our other granddaughter, who doesn't appear in this one. Last year, the two angels were my two granddaughters. But, actually that might have been 2 years ago. But anyway, sorry, needed a drink. And her name is Alistair, so that's why all the stars. A little more subtle reference. But again, just using the ink line to get it, because as you look at this image, you'll notice when I carve it away, that's lighter, and that light area will be the paper. What's appearing in the darker brown right now, that's where the ink will be, and so that will be black. And of course, the other thing with the print is, as you're looking at this now, the final image will be reversed. And since I based this off of a photograph of her wearing her wings and being very cute, and the advantage of a cell phone is that I can flip the image easily rather than holding a mirror up to it, so that when I print it, not that this one is so specific, but the shape of the eyebrows, the shape of her face will be as they are in reality as opposed to a mirror image of that. So just sort of doing these last little bits of finesse with the pen, changing of images as needs be. And you can see just where I drew those lines, this other shape between the stars and her. I had thought of having her leg and her foot in there, but I've kind of decided, because you see I didn't go back in and draw it, that that's just going to disappear. I don't think it's necessary. At first I thought we needed to put her in space a little more, but I finally thought about it and decided, yeah, that's not necessary. So there's always an editing process in making art. And at least for my way of making art, I like to distill things down to their smallest, to their essence, what's most important to tell the story visually. So now I'm just working through the fingers and making sure to get them carved carefully and right. And I want to watch this because I know right about here. See, I pushed too far up. And as I take that out, see how that finger moves a little bit? So that's going to be interesting to see what happens when I print, because there's no going back and gluing that in or getting that line right. So that's a concern, but my wife came up with this great expression about making art long ago, which is it's striving for imperfection. And in that striving, you also have to learn to accept certain things you can't change. And there are times when it's so ruined you just got to start over. Certainly didn't want to do that with this, and I don't think it's going to matter enough. So just, so you can see it moves a little bit, and clearly I'm worried about it as I keep shoving it back and forth, so we'll see what happens. So after this video, and of course I'm going to take you all the way through carving it, then we will, I'll do a second video that will show the actual printing process of this, and you'll see the final results. But just so carefully. And see the little wiggle in the hand there? Can you see the thumb and finger going back? That's just making sure that I'm getting it carved without too much pressure, because what will happen is if your blade slips and you cut a little gouge somewhere, you're stuck with it. And then it's back to that trying to figure out, can I fix it? Can I live with it? And so just wiggle, 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 try to avoid the slip. And then there's the other thing of trying to make sure the little carved pieces don't hide your vision. So now we'll switch back to time lapse as I work on the other hands and pull the pen out to make sure that it all makes sense. So just carving back and forth through. So you'll notice that first I go around with the fine blade and cut the line work, and then take the deeper blade and cut it out. And you can see I just made that one star a little bit bigger, and the same thing with the cloud. And that's kind of hiding where I changed my mind about her toe. Again, fine line, and then take the bigger blade and carve things out. And I think I jump here pretty soon. Don't make you suffer through cutting all the stars, but here working through the hair. Going fine line, and then it'll be more apparent when I work on her face. So I'll save that comment for it. Just here, so seeing, I've cut out the stars, and now we're down to the final bit. So I've got the fine blade back out again. I'm working on first the face, and then it was just easier, the little divot below your lip, to get the little bit there by coming back and just doing that little triangle, and now the lower lip. And so you can see again, just very carefully and slowly with the fine blade. And now, I hope I'm not repeating myself, but so I've created these. We started doing these, as I said earlier, 40 years ago, as a way to give a gift to our friends and families and patrons over the years. And these things are special for me and special for those who have them, because they're only given, they're never sold. So, and it started way back, and I think it was 84. Easy math, right? And we printed these on the dining room table with inking them and using a wooden spoon to rub the back and laying them all out to dry. And I've gotten more sophisticated, and there's a local arts organization that you can rent studio time, and so I can use an etching press, get a much better quality print in a much shorter period of time, and the all-important drying racks. Because now I produce about 140 of these. And there are good friends who have all of these, and occasionally on social media somebody will say, oh, it's Christmas time, and show a picture of all of my cards up and displayed. Always warms my heart. But you can see I'm going back and forth, lining these very carefully, because this is the point where I'm creating what the line will look like, so that what will look like a drawn line in the final print is what got left behind in the carving. So I want to use the finer blade, because as in all things art making, you're looking for line quality. You want a line that looks assured, because like I said earlier, there's no sketchiness capable here. And at this point, the fine blade is the one to make sure those lines are right. Now, if you're interested and haven't already watched other of these videos, you can go to my website, greigleach.com, and I will write that out for you in the description. But it is an unusual spelling. My parents very graciously gave me a name that's findable on the internet, even though when they did that, there were no computers. So there certainly was no internet. So it's GREIGLEACH.com. And then you can also find me on social medias, and I'm just building a new presence on the new Blue Sky, which is fast become my preferred place. There I'm Art of Cycling, but if you search my name, you'll find me. So you can see I'm stopping to look before I decide where I'm going to carve next. Trying to, very specific arch of the eyebrows. Ivy has her father's eyebrows. They're strong and specific, and they're actually his grandfather, my father-in-law's eyebrows. So just a family reference again. And of course, if you're enjoying watching these, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to see something in the comments. Do you make a Christmas card every year? We do get about 3 or 4 cards from people, other artist friends who make their cards as well. It's such a treat. So I'd love to see your cards if you make them. Or hear about your process. And have you done Linocut before? First time I did a Linocut, like many of you, did them I actually did it in junior high school. I loved it then. And recently I've included, and if you go back and look at some of the still life paintings of they're sort of abstract-esque. The base of them are either wine glasses or martini glasses that I carved and did, like, made a stamp using the same technique. And then painted over it once it had dried well enough. But this is a standalone image. This will not be, color will not be added to it. So you can see I'm just about finished lining it all out, trying to get the eyeball just right. And you can see the way I spin these things around. It's just so I can get a better direction on the cut. And I try to also cut away from the line. So I'm going to have to come back in and do an intersection. There I am, just correcting the curve of the eyeball. So again, if the blade slips, I don't cut that line away because there's no putting it back in. And then continually sweeping the shavings away. Just so I can see. And even in that case, that one little cut ended the, the end of the eyelash, made it a definitive end. And you can pretty much tell what the image is going to look like now, but the final proof will be doing a rubbing, which will have to be part of the next video. As we get towards the end of this, I do want to remind you that if you do comment, if you do like or share, all of that will help other people find the work, and that would be greatly appreciated. Of course, the spinning, you can see that I'm really taking the time to look, make sure that it looks as it should. Now I'm switching back to the shallower gauge. So it's still V-shaped, but it's more curved out, and it's two functions here. One is, of course, I get a wider cut, so it takes less time to cut everything out. But two, if you're not careful with particularly the fine blade, you can leave little ridges, and you can kind of see the ridges in the wings on each side, or in her arm, or the clouds, or everywhere. But you want to make sure that those are low enough, because there's the possibility, particularly when using the fine blade, that you leave a tall ridge that will pick up some of the ink when you roll it out. And that can look bad. And so two things I'm doing now is, like, see how I'm swinging over the brow, having that line follow all the way through. And that's an all drawing technique. You want to have the mark making follow the contours, the physicality of the thing that you're making marks to indicate. That was a little more elaborate probably than it needed to be, that statement. But so, and that way, if any of the ink picks up with little contoury lines that get left, will help to inform the figure. And that's true like in my large scale paintings. If you go to my website and look at some of the figurative work, that the opacity or the viscosity of the paint helps to continue the information and doesn't work against the shape of the object, but actually augments it. Now, particularly in the darling little cheruby granddaughter's face, I don't want random black lines. So again, using the deeper thing to make sure I don't leave any ridges behind. Now, if some were left in the wing, that would be fine. Of course, I won't know for sure that I've done that, got it all, until I ink it up. And I won't do that till I start printing. So when I go to print, I take the carving tools with me. And if I see something that doesn't look right, I can always carve away. So it's a reductive process, and I can always take away more. But there's that magical point where you took away too much. So as in all art making, there's such a point. There's so many decisions being made, and I think one of the most important ones, the most important decision you'll make is when to stop making decisions. When you go, okay, that's done. And that's a very hard point. A lot of people do what's called overworking the painting, which I think is worse than underworking a painting, but that's also can be a problem. So it's a wonderful little narrow line. It's also fun is trying to time out when I talk to the image, because clearly a voiceover is done after the work is done. It's really frustrating as I thought I was recording. So this is the second time I've tried to time this out. So now, did I say that already? So if I repeat myself, I apologize. So just the final little strokes here again. Time to encourage you to subscribe. So you'll see, if you're invested to this point, if you're still watching now, you'll want to see how this prints up. So today's December 7th. I hope to print on the 9th. So the next thing I do after I post this is book my studio time at a place that I call the Ham Workshop still, but it's now the Visual Arts Center here in Richmond, where I can book some etching press time. I admit it, I love watching these. I really like watching the time lapse. So that's it. I do appreciate you watching. You get a moment here to see this right side up, but right now I just want to make sure I have the best angle to carve out the last little bit of her cheek. Final look. As I'm looking now, I don't see anything I missed. So I hope you enjoy the image. I hope you come back to see the printing parts. I truly appreciate you watching. Thank you all so much. And a happy holidays to you too. Oh, must have thought I was done recording.